Today, I'm going to do a video recording on how talent enables our partners to succeed by constantly iterating and delivering success to the customers. Here's the challenge that we're going to talk through in this video. The customer has a lot of data in SalesForce, but they really want to understand and analyze that data set. So you have somebody maybe in marketing, sales, working for the CRO, who's ultimately wanting to understand in depth what's actually happening within the sales channel. The issue we have here is not only to deliver something and often, but to constantly deliver as the customers changes and finds new things. And if we don't deliver in time, ultimately our customer becomes angry and starts to lose faith in both the tool set and the partner. So the goal that we're going to go through here is we're going to show returns quickly, and ultimately that means delivering as much data in day one, and then we're going to constantly refine that and improve it so the value of that data set keeps on going up. Ultimately, that'll make the customer happy, enable them to do more analytics to get more out of their data set, and the trust that then is built between the partner and the customer allows them to win the next project. Okay, so let's assume that this is our architecture that we're going to use. This is something that's being used in many organizations today as people move to the cloud, is taking that SalesForce data. We want to place all of it in its full fidelity in a landing zone. That landing zone is going to be in Snowflake, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take a copy of that data on day one, the same exact copy with all the errors and everything else, and push it out to a consumption zone. Our customer is going to be able to then use the tool of their choice to access and understand what's going on in that data set. So here's what happens on day one. SalesForce is a source within Stitch Data. So the partner logs in to Stitch Data, fills in the username, password, and the secret key of the SalesForce account. As soon as they do that, they will get the list of objects appear up in a screen that they want to replicate. Here the partner just goes through and clicks on each object that they're looking for, and there's about 300 objects of different types, each with different cardinalities of rows. And then what they're going to do is basically hit run on this. This ultimately will lead and move all the data from SalesForce into our Snowflake landing zone. To create the second part of the flow, a simple flow within Talent Studio is going to be created that just moves the data from landing zone to consumption zone with no changes, no manipulations to it. This is something that the partner can have ready to go on day one. They will deploy it in a remote engine, and they will deploy it so that it has a webhook. So it's exposed as a webhook, essentially a URL that will be invoked as soon as Stitch has finished uploading the data set. Now day two, what happens is the customer can now read that data from the consumption zone, start to ask loads of questions, and will start to spot errors and start to question the validity of the data, duplicates, etc. Ultimately, what every customer finds is the data is not as good as they thought. So at this point, the partner can not only take that feedback in, but start to apply 17 different profiling data and data analysis tools over that data set and modify that single flow that took from the landing zone to the consumption zone with more and more data. So what happens is as the profiling tools tell you where there are errors in the data set, because the profiling tool is part of the developer's tool, the developer's tool can actually generate the flow and place them directly into that initial flow. And here is a list of all the profiling techniques that are out across the different data sets. So whether it's a single customer, a single column, multiple tables, different data sets, all kinds of different data information you can find out, and then you can send it out to iterate quickly through that. Not only relying now on the customer's feedback, but understanding the data so you can communicate to them where their data is incorrect. Other pieces in there, managing duplicates. So in this case, a simple flow is added where we do some validation on certain fields to understand where there's potential match records or duplicates or potential duplicates, and manage them accordingly. And then finally, it's not just good enough to profile the data in terms of making sure the dates are correct and everything else. The flows can actually build in different types of services to ensure things like addresses, whether using Melissa addresses or Google Maps or other tools such as Reltio, to go and get more external data about what we're pushing through from SalesForce. Ultimately, this means that as the customer learns about their data set and realizes that their SalesForce data is not as good as they thought, not only will their original customer be able to run reports across it, but they'll also be able to push the data, high value data, back into SalesForce, increasing the value to the SalesForce. This continuing improvement, that as the SalesForce data improves and gets updated each day, can be refined. The customer and partner work together to understand the data and how it should be better used for the customer's specific use case. And the customer is not seeing the results at the end of a sprint, but is actually daily seeing results and changes and improvements that they can continually act upon. And ultimately, Talent's goal is for the partner to win the next deal due to the speed, trust, and expertise of delivery that the partner has been able to show. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your Talent representative.